Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm just going to give it a couple of seconds so that people that are joining can get on. You can see it's still ticking up. We have an incredible turnout tonight, so thanks all for joining. So why don't I get started? Good evening or afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Mimi Boblik, and I'm with Parents Against Vaping. I'm a founding partner along with a few of my colleagues. I first want to acknowledge two colleagues I have here tonight, Alyssa and Austin, who are Wizard of Oz in the back here and helping me with tech. And in case anything goes wrong on the tech side, hopefully it will not. So welcome to you all. I'm a parent like many of you, and I have three now grown kids, 26, 23, and 20. And I got into this in 2017 when my own daughter started vaping, and we'll talk about how this happened in 2017 when one particular company, Juul, hit the market and really started targeting our kids. But I first just want to say that, first of all, for those hearing this for the first time, I hope that you find this informative. And for those who, for whom this might not be the first time, I hope that there's some new information here. We will be updating our presentations quite often throughout the year as we learn new medical findings and other critical issues. And we've had such high demand for these presentations by schools and parents that we are now offering this on a sort of quarterly basis. So please spread the word to anyone who you think might want to learn about the dangers of vaping and everything around it. Just a couple of things. First, to know that our information is, I'm a parent, but our information is based on the latest science, latest research from our public health experts across the country. And so we do try and update our data as much as possible, as often as possible. And very importantly, our goal at Parents Against Vaping is to protect youth from the vaping industry and the dangers of vaping and nicotine use. We are not focused on adults who vape or use nicotine. So that is really important to know about when you hear this presentation. So tonight, I hope that what you'll take away from this is, first of all, understanding the tobacco industry's targeting of our kids, and importantly, about the dangers of nicotine use through vaping and also other use of nicotine. And there are other products out there that I want to make you aware of because they're very kid-friendly and our kids are using them, but they are not safe for kids. And also, hopefully, you'll take away sort of how to talk to kids, how to protect youth from the use of nicotine, or if they are struggling with addiction, how to help them on that end. And then also how we can take action in our own communities, which is really all related, which is what we all do here. Parents Against Vaping started in 2018, and the origin story is crazy. I'll just mention it, but just quickly, a Juul representative, unbeknownst to the school where our founders' ninth grade kids were all in the same classroom, the Juul representative came into the school under the guise of an anti-addiction health presentation and told a room of students, ninth grade students, that Juul was totally safe and about to be approved by the FDA. And none of that was true then and remains untrue today. So that is sort of the origin story. PAVE, Parents Against Vaping, now really is a national advocacy and education nonprofit. We advocate really for getting flavors off the market because flavors are hooking kids, and I'll share a little bit about that. And we also do education, which is what I'm doing tonight. And we have really become the national parent voice in this conversation on the youth vaping crisis. We have volunteers across the country, and again, we try and advocate on the federal, state, and local levels for changes in the laws, and we have managed to help get laws passed in many states around the country. So we're really proud of our work. We'd love you to join us. Please email us if you want to get involved in your own communities. just sharing a little bit, and just so you know, this will be about 45 minutes, the slides, and then if you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A function. I'll try and get to as many as I can. Austin and Alyssa will be trying to also answer as many throughout the presentation as they can. If there's something that may be unique to you. If it's more something a general question, then hopefully I'll get to it by the end. But you can always reach out to us, and I'll share how to do that at the end as well. So very quickly, fortunately, youth vaping numbers have come down. The height was about 5.3 million teens in 2019, I believe, or 2020 vaping. It was a huge number, really scary. It is still really scary for all of us. 2.1 million kids in middle and high school is still a crisis level. We want that to be zero. I can share with you that smoking rates were not this high today, and I'll share a little bit about that in a moment. Alarmingly to us is that around 25% of youth who are vaping are using daily, which really to us indicates a high level of addiction. And as I mentioned, flavors hook kids. Most kids who start, 90% use flavored cigarettes. That's how they start, and that's what they get hooked on. The flavors are really alluring to our kids. And then I know many of you have perhaps younger kids than college age, but it is really important to know that over 10% of 18 to 24-year-olds are vaping, and that's probably really, a hangover from starting younger or starting in early college and getting addicted. But 21 is generally the national age when tobacco is legalized. But of course, we know that our kids are being sold these products all over the country at a very much younger age. So very importantly, I think this is one of the, just a flash of history in terms of cigarette rates and smoking and e-cigarette rates. In the 90s, over 27% of youth were smoking, but by the around 2019, it was under 6%, and that was really the result of great education, public health partners, people across the country were really working hard, and were able to, and also great, work just driving it home from parents, etc. We had smoking rates under 6%, but what happened as soon as e-cigarettes were introduced and targeted at our kids, again, we had over 27% of kids using e-cigarettes. So this really shows that, again, our kids, my daughter never would have picked up a cigarette. And with that, in a blinking of an eye, she picked up vaping because she thought it was completely safe and harmless. And so how did we get here? I'm just going to talk a little bit about youth marketing, because we think this information is really helpful both for adults and kids. For adults, because it's really important for us to understand that our kids have been targeted, and I think it makes us more compassionate and understanding. And also, I think it's important for kids to see this because they don't like to be taken advantage of, especially by big business and industries making money off their health. So we want to make advocates of our youth and not create the next generation of lifetime customers. So these ads were kind of the early ads when Juul first hit the market. And they said that they were trying to appeal to adult smokers trying to get off of smoking. But obviously, you look at these ads, they tell a very different story, right? This could be my own daughter, any of these pictures. These are very aspirational for young kids with the dress and the look, and they look very happy. And these companies are going to parties where our kids are. They use influencers on social media. They're handing out free products at events. They're clearly targeting our kids and not adults. And why are they doing this? Well, these companies know a dirty little secret, which is no longer a secret to me. I learned it when I started getting into this work, that 90% of people who struggle with addiction started using substances before 18. So they know that they need to get our kids hooked while they're young, because they're more susceptible to addiction. And if they can get them hooked young, they're going to create their next lifetime customer. So, these are some of the, we say same playbook, but a slightly different product. They're using the same, strategies of using doctors, now scientists, to endorse these products. You see the old Marlboro man who was, super cool, and now you have the blue man. It's all very, very similar. And one thing that I think is really important to see and also to talk to our kids about is the store displays. I live in New York City, and I think whether you're in a rural, suburban, or urban area, if you go to gas stations, you go to convenience stores, you go to these vape shops, these products are really targeted at our kids. They look like candy, and often they're placed next to the candy. And so I think it's just really important to have a conversation with our kids that these are not candy. And while they may taste like candy, they are actually dangerous products for our kids. Unfortunately, too, there's just not enough enforcement of the laws. So even where there are laws that either are, have banned these products from the market, like New York City, you can still get them anywhere. Kids as young as 9 or 10 are walking into stores. No one's doing age verification. And unfortunately, they're very easy to buy and easy to hide. And the tobacco industry really has had a long history of strategic and aggressive marketing to specific populations. They use sponsoring of events like gay pride events. They give out, again, free products and coupons and other things, making health claims under the guise of sort of corporate social responsibility activities. But it's really, companies obviously don't care about these people. They're just trying to make a buck, right? So it's just really important to understand that there has been a long history of this, and unfortunately, nowhere has it been more egregious than big tobacco's targeting of Black communities. There are, if you go on this really short but very powerful documentary called Black Lives, Black Lungs, it shows how they used to go in with big vans and hand out products in neighborhoods, and it worked. So now over 80% of Black smokers use menthol, and it's even higher among youth. So it's one of the reasons that we are really working hard to get the FDA to just get all menthol products off the market. And so just very quickly, you have probably seen, news that maybe some of these have been taken off the market. That is true, but there are still thousands and thousands of products available to our kids, and many of them are coming through from China. China has actually, ironically, banned flavored disposable vapes in China to protect their own kids, but 90% of our products come from China. Many of them are illegal, many of them are hit our ports, and no one's enforcing. The FDA is just not doing enough, and other enforcement agencies are not doing enough. So these are mostly coming from China, and we're really working hard with to try and get, to limit and stop them at the border. Many of them are illegal products that our kids are using. They have not been approved by the FDA, so we can't say what's in them. And so these are a lot of products. We just want you to know what they look like. They're constantly changing. The popular ones, I would say every few months they come out with new ones that are considered teen favorites. But these disposable devices are really popular among our kids. You have Elf Bar, Lost Mary, Miley. They look very different. They don't really all look like anything too bad. But unfortunately, they contain a ton of nicotine, as much as 1 to 2 packs of cigarettes worth of nicotine in each of these products. And they come in a lot of very enticing, yummy flavors for our kids. And some of them contain even more, like 600 to 800 and up to 5,000 puffs, which is crazy. But that's nearly a carton of cigarettes. So again, the average is 1 to 2 packs of cigarettes worth in each of these devices, but some are even more. So these are just really important to, look in backpacks, look in bedrooms, make sure that, you see what's in their pockets and things, because these are really easy to hide. They don't look like anything, and they look like highlighters, pens sometimes, and they're really not safe, and kids can use them. Many of these are disposable. They use them and throw them away. These are the non-disposable products that also are popular. The pod-based devices, they have a little pod, you click it in there and you use it until the pod is empty. Many of the flavored pods really are supposed to be off the market, but of course, again, because of lack of regulation, they are often still able to be found. The loose e-liquids, these refillable ones, are popular because there are over 15,000 flavors of e-liquids, and there's anything from gummy bear to cotton candy and Hawaiian punch. So many kid-friendly flavors. So kids like to pour their own e-liquids in there. They also often will use THC liquid, which is pot, weed, marijuana, cannabis, whatever words you want to use. THC is what they call it, but it's really pot. So often they will interchangeably use these devices to put e-liquid of THC in these devices as well. And I want to share a couple of non-vaping products with you because these have become really popular among kids. Zyn and Velo, these are pouches. They're little pouches that they put inside their cheek, in their mouth, and the liquid, the nicotine gets absorbed that way. It is not a vaping product. They do contain lots of nicotine. There's also gums and lozenges. Importantly, most of these products are not considered nicotine replacement therapy. They are just considered products that our kids happen to really like. Again, there are a lot of flavored products. They are smokeless nicotine, but they are also, nicotine is not healthy for our kids' developing brains, and I'll talk a bit about that. But so it's really just important to see these. We think that kids use them very often when they can't vape or don't want to vape, but need to take the edge off if they're addicted to nicotine. And then another really important category is a non-nicotine vape. So there are a lot of companies out there that are marketing these wellness vapes. They call them wellness vapes, but that is really contradiction in terms, because there's nothing that can be vaped that is good for you. Even the vaping of nothing, of just the products that turn liquid into vapor, which are, there's two chemicals, that propylene glycol and glycerin, that turn the e-liquid into the vapor, the aerosol that they then inhale, can cause inflammation in the lungs. But non-nicotine vapes are really alluring. You look at these beautiful ads with these, cute teddy bears and things like that, and it really does look like they're healthy for you, but unfortunately they're not. Many of them contain much of the flavorings, the same flavorings that you will find in the nicotine vapes, just without the nicotine. And in fact, we've had researchers show that even some of the ones that claim they don't have nicotine contain nicotine. So the problem is that these are not regulated. They're making unsubstantiated health claims, and we don't know what's in these. FDA is not regulating these. And frankly, it's acting as a starter kit for our kids, right? There's nothing, they think they're completely healthy. My own daughter, when she was trying to quit vaping, she was using these thinking it was going to be better for her. But really, they're not. They have a lot of the same bad chemicals in them. And many of these chemicals, by the way, are approved by the FDA for ingesting, for food additives. But unfortunately, when you combine them with other chemicals, you heat them to high levels and you inhale them into the lungs, that has never been shown to be safe. So, and these are really accessible. They're being sold at places like Urban Outfitter and places where our kids can buy them without, there's no age verification or anything. And this is just another example of that. This is a Puff Bar Zero. Now, what's interesting about this is Puff Bar is a very well-known brand. They've now moved into a Puff Bar that contains THC, and those sales are starting to grow rapidly. So again, once they have customer loyalty, it's an easy switch for kids to go from nicotine to THC. A vape's a vape, right? That's what they think. But unfortunately, more and more kids are starting to use nicotine and cannabis together. Many of these companies actually recognize that federal regulation or that the federal laws may change to legalize cannabis, and so they're getting ahead of it, and they're buying up companies so that they can sell vaping products that contain cannabis as well. Unfortunately, our kids more and more are using cannabis and nicotine together and separately. We know now that there is a link that studies are showing that kids who use e-cigarettes are over 3 times more likely to go on to use cannabis than those who don't use e-cigarettes. And according to our sources at the Truth Initiative, which is a very reliable source that does research on this. 1 in 3 teens have tried cannabis by the age of 12th grade, by 12th grade. So it's growing in popularity. And unfortunately, kids are starting to use them together because they counteract each other. These sort of anxiety producing effects of the nicotine, they will chase it with the cannabis or THC to sort of like relax themselves. So they're starting to have these, they call it chasing, which is not good. So people often ask us, what's the difference between an e-cigarette and a cigarette? And there are quite a few differences. I mean, they're both bad, but I will share that the nicotine in e-cigarettes is a special formulation of nicotine salts, which are meant to hit the brain and the bloodstream very quickly. They cause this alluring head rush that is that kids really like, and that is what can sort of takes over the addiction pathways. So the nicotine salts are again hit the bloodstream fast. They also are designed to cause to less harshness than a cigarette. So it's easier to inhale, easier to take a deeper inhale, easier to initiate than a cigarette. As well, vapes can be used anywhere, 24/7. They're really discreet. Kids put them in their pockets. They keep them under their pillows. They can use them in the classrooms. There's not this big, smoke. It doesn't smell harsh. There is a smell, but it's not like a cigarette smell. Whereas cigarettes, you have to go outside to use them now, right? For the most part, you can't use a cigarette inside a public space. And also, when you look at a pack of cigarettes, and a smoker can see usually about how much they've smoked in a day. They open the pack and they see, okay, maybe there's 3 or 4 missing. With an e-cigarette, you have no idea how much you've smoked or vaped until it's gone. And as I mentioned, they contain a lot of nicotine and very potent kind of nicotine. So 1 to 2 packs of cigarettes worth of nicotine in a single vape. And what's in it? So we talk about the chemicals a little bit earlier. The ones in red here, so these are all chemicals found in many vapes. A lot of them are flavorings, some of them are heavy metals and not chemicals. The ones in red are FDA's known harmful or potential harmful substances. Some are known toxins, some are known carcinogens. So nicotine is not the only thing that's in these. There are many products, many chemicals, again, not necessarily meant to be combined, heated at high levels and inhaled into the lungs. Diacetyl, which is one of them, is known to cause something called popcorn lung, which is a permanent scarring of the lungs. And we've heard of several cases, unfortunately, of kids reporting popcorn lung. So for me as a parent, this is the most important area, which is how is this affecting my kid's body? And the brain is really affected by nicotine and these chemicals. So we know that the brain continues to develop until the age of 25. We're hearing even maybe higher for potentially for boys and young men. But the developing brains are simply more sensitive to nicotine and any addictive substance, frankly. And as crazy as this sounds, nicotine, they say, is as addictive as cocaine and heroin. So it's really hard to quit once a child becomes addicted. And again, this fact that 90% of those who struggle with addiction started using substances before the age of 18, is because the adolescent brain is simply more, wired for addiction. So the nicotine, basically what's happening is the nicotine releases dopamine, which is a pleasure transmitter in our brain that our brain emits without any drugs. Like if something good happens to a child, they score a soccer game, or they score in Fortnite, or they do something great, and or something, it's a feel good chemical. So but what happens is when kids start vaping, that their brain gets used to the drug releasing dopamine, and it wants more and more, resulting in the dependency. And when they don't use it, they get the withdrawal symptom, which is really awful. And so they need more and more of the nicotine just to feel that sort of normal baseline. And eventually, sometimes it does lead to using harder drugs to, again, feel just that normalcy. And what we know is that nicotine can cause cognitive permanent changes to the brain, like worsening memory, worsening processing speed, and worsening of impulse control. And finally, nicotine, a lot of kids we hear are self-medicating for underlying anxiety or depression, and they think it helps. And it feels like it does in the short run, but once that nicotine starts to take over their reward pathways and they are addicted, then actually can worsen their symptoms of anxiety and depression. So we just need to, help our kids find other strategies for dealing with underlying mental health issues or simply just, stressful situations. And we know that vaping also affects developing lungs. Lungs also continue to develop even later, like into their 20s and maybe even early 30s, from our pulmonologist experts who tell us this. And basically, their lungs are at their strongest point when they're teenagers, right? So they may not initially feel the decrease in capacity, but we do hear from many young people that they find it harder to breathe, find it harder to do the same things that they used to do before they started vaping. And the reason why is because vaping can create irritation and inflammation of the lungs, and often sometimes worse. And I don't want to get into like really dramatic stories, but there are issues, there are many stories that are far worse than what we're talking about here, including lung transplants and other organ transplants. But for sure, we know from pulmonologists that it can cause inflammation and irritation in the lungs. Frankly, it's going to be years till we know. Just like smoking, it took decades to really understand the full health harms. It's going to be decades probably till we really understand the full harms of vaping. And nicotine does affect the heart. Nicotine's a stimulant, so it triggers that fight or flight response, and that's not really good for kids unless they're in a dangerous situation. But it can increase blood pressure and it gets the adrenaline flowing. Again, it's not something that we want to have with kids. We've heard of heart arrhythmias as well. My own daughter had heart palpitations. She didn't quite understand why her heart was racing so much. And it's likely due to the fact that nicotine is a stimulant. And, on a young developing body, that's probably a lot to take in. There are other additional risks, which, I don't need to go into detail, but know that vaping does weaken the immune system, and it can make people more susceptible to getting diseases and viruses, and making those viruses worse. Also, these kids, it's a social thing. So kids are at parties, they're in the bathroom, they're sharing vapes very often, and they're sharing germs as well, obviously, right? So young people are likely to get things through just sharing. We also know that there is damage to the DNA in the mouth as well. And we have heard a lot of cases. They're not being tracked as well since COVID, but we've heard of a number of cases of seizures from nicotine poisoning. Again, these young bodies just can't take the nicotine that they're getting. So I want to share a little bit about, just quickly, what are some of the reasons that kids are vaping? I mentioned before, flavors. Flavors are really, hooking kids. Again, I think if there were only flavorless products, we probably wouldn't be in this crisis that we're in right now. But it is important to know that the flavors are really alluring. Also, this youth-targeted marketing, very alluring to our kids. And frankly, they're pretty cheap. They're really affordable. They're easy to use, easy to hide. And you may want to just make sure that you're looking at spending habits of your kids, like if they have Zelle or Venmo or any of these apps, or social media. Very often kids are buying products with students and others in their area, in their communities, through social media as well. So that is important to look out for. And also in what's happening, what they're getting shipped. Even though you're not supposed to be shipping these products, people are still able to hide them and ship them successfully. Also, they've kind of been normalized in society among our kids now. And so they might feel a social pressure to vape at parties or in the bathroom or among their peers. But you can also assure kids that even though it feels like everybody's doing it, it still is, there's still many, many kids who are not doing it, right? So I think it's important to understand that they do have a choice. And also, as I mentioned, there's just really, since COVID especially, I think it's exacerbated our mental health among our youth in this country. And there's been a heightened level of stress and anxiety and depression, and unfortunately, therefore, an increased use of substances. And nicotine just seems like a really easy one because it's just so accessible. Kids love the head rush, that nicotine kick I was talking about. Also, they're just really addictive. And finally, I think that kids see them when they hear safer than smoking, they hear safe. And they're simply not safe for our kids for all the reasons that we talked about. And we hear from youth, who started that they really wish they had never started, and that it really kind of takes over their life. And again, it sounds kind of dramatic because I never heard that about smokers, but I really am hearing it a lot among kids and parents whose kids are dealing with addiction, e-cigarette addiction. And so, just that they thought it was going to help with their stressors in their life, and it actually just made them feel worse. I don't know if any of you have seen this Hidden in Plain Sight, but it's really quite terrific. Sometimes police will set up these in schools, but they set up a mock bedroom and they show where all these things can be hidden by kids. But I just, if you look at this picture, you can see different things, but what you don't realize necessarily is all of these are e-cigarettes, maybe a weed pen, but most of these are e-cigarettes. They look like flash drives, they look like highlighters, they look like things that are not toxic to our kids. And so I want to share a little bit about some of the signs of vaping because frankly, I missed many of them. I didn't know these signs. And now that I understand them, I see that my daughter was exhibiting quite a few. Now, the tricky part about these signs is that some of them are just typical adolescent behavior, right? Being cranky or moody or secretive. These things can be very common in our own adolescence. But I think the thing is, if it's unusual behavior for your own child, then it could be a sign that there's something going on. Some of the signs of vaping are secretive attitude, wanting to close the door, open windows, windows in their room, hiding smells like that. Because as I mentioned, it doesn't smell like cigarettes, but there is a sweet smell that I missed. So I used to make my daughter kiss me goodnight when she came home from parties in high school. And I did smell something, but I couldn't quite place it. It was this sweet smell that it had no place in my life. So I just thought it was like perfumes or gum or something. But it was likely the aerosol that sticks to the hair and the clothes. It does have a smell. And so if your kids are lighting incense or using candles, etc., also just more secretive. So if you're on vacation and they're leaving the table to go to the bathroom often, or leaving where you are to go somewhere else, it could be that they need to get a hit of their vape because they're addicted. Also, dry cough, it makes the mouth very dry. Looking out for these devices that I shared with you earlier. Changes in sleeping patterns. Nicotine is a stimulant, so it could change their sleeping pattern, could make it harder to go to sleep at night if they've been vaping in the evening. Also, this raspy cough that I was describing, my daughter had that. I did not know what it was. It's an irritation. That is a sign of irritation. If it's worse than that, it could be lung infection. If there's shortness of breath or pneumonia, you just want to make sure that you are seeking help. Also, again, anxiety, irritability, mood swings. These are things that are common, typical adolescent behavior, but if they're more than what you're used to, it could be a sign. And then changes in eating habits. There's something called Nixic. If you vape quite a bit, it can make you feel quite sick. People describe even throwing up from too much nicotine. But if there's weight loss, if you're noticing some just changes in eating habits, it could be something. And then again, this sort of like knowing what they're spending their money on and what if they're getting deliveries. Here we have Uber Eats will actually deliver vapes to your door. So again, we just have to be really cognizant of what's happening. And these are just some quotes from parents who's really sort of feeling helpless about what was going on with their own kids. He started disappearing more and became a different person. It was hard to watch. Parents do describe that their kids really changed when they became addicted to nicotine and to e-cigarettes because they're so potent. And kids also describe when they forget their vape that they get really anxious and irritable. So I want to switch a little bit to the conversation because parents always say, like, what am I supposed to do? How do I talk about this? How do I, so how do I handle it if my child has been vaping? How do I know, which we talked about the signs of? So, every parent is different. Everyone parents differently. So we just want to share some of the things that we've heard from experts. Basically, if you found vaping products in your home or on your child or in their backpacks, you might feel angry and frustrated and maybe even embarrassed. But the conversation really has to come from a place of empathy and compassion and understanding, because as one of our brilliant psychiatrists, he's an addiction psychiatrist. You can actually hear his webinar if you go into our archives. Jonathan Avery. He says addiction hides in the shadows because of the shame of it, and so it's from doing something that you can't control, and deep down it isn't healthy, but it's hard to stop. So it's really important just to understand that this is a really hard addiction to break, and many kids don't choose to, and many kids really would like to quit. So when you decide how to talk to your child, prepare for the conversation, have a general understanding of the issue, and as a trusted adult, come from a place of no judgment, right? We say that no shame, no blame, that these kids have been targeted. And so it really is a situation where we're trying to help them go to the next level. And unfortunately, we really need to start early. So we used to say start as early as 9, but honestly, we're hearing more and more from school teachers in elementary that kids as young as 2nd and 3rd grade are coming into school with vapes. So we really need to start even earlier with our kids, because especially if you have older siblings or they're in situations with people around them who might be using e-cigarettes, they might be seeing them or picking them up. And we have a parenting expert, Julie Ross, who really suggests talking to our kids, even younger, because before their brains reach the stage of, of exposure and where they feel invincible. And that's a really tough one. I definitely see that in kids. But really to keep the lines of communication open and be curious, right? You can ask questions like, what's happening at school? What are you seeing there? You seeing it in the bathrooms? I'm hearing from other parents that kids don't want to go in the bathrooms because there's too much vaping going on. How does that make you feel when you see it? Are you tempted to try it? Let me share with you some things that I know now about vaping. So trying not to be reactionary. And also modeling behavior. We happen to know just from science and data that that parents who smoke or vape have kids who are more likely to smoke or vape. So it's just helpful maybe not to do it in front of them. Again, there's no blame at all. It's really no judgment. It's really just trying not to maybe normalize it for our kids as well. And just encourage conversations with other trusted adults. If they don't want to talk to you about it, maybe there's a cousin or an uncle, or frankly, just the pediatrician to talk to. And if you suspect that your child has an addiction, we will share some resources here. And it's important just to seek out local addiction specialists, ask your pediatrician about it. Unfortunately, there are no FDA approved cessation devices for kids or cessation therapies. However, many doctors, if you talk to your pediatricians and you share the situation, they will often prescribe nicotine replacement therapies, NRTs, to kids. So it's just really helpful, to have trusted adults in the community that know, what to do. And also go easy on yourself, because it can take many, many tries, first of all, and go easy on kids. It can take many tries for kids to quit. It can be very frustrating, and they can fall back and then try again. But just for us to be, easy on ourselves, because, we are good parents and we really do try our best, right? So we have to be open to trying things. So how we can support our teens to quit: if you suspect your youth is already addicted to nicotine, we want to support them to talk to people. There are helplines. Some of them are AI driven, artificial intelligence. There is an app called This Is Quitting, which is artificial intelligence, but it really does give you kind of support when you're trying to quit. So it could be in addition to other things, therapies, or by itself, but it kind of helps you each day, gives you reminders, how are you doing? There's also a parent version of the This Is Quitting app. Also, there are tools that can help with the dependency and craving. So as I mentioned, talk to the doctor, or even a school nurse somewhere, counseling, someone who can give you some ideas. There are, again, pediatricians that will help with this. And again, just know that relapsing is really normal and it can take several tries to quit. And then parents and school administrators should also know that I think parents are really concerned that many schools use disciplinary approaches like suspension and expulsion when their kids are caught vaping in school. And unfortunately, these punitive practices do not work. First of all, they take kids out of their social situation, out of their learning situation. Kids cannot learn if they're in school. So we are working on, and we have a new webinar just directed at schools and parents who are interested on school policy. Really what's the sort of movement now, and what people are really encouraging schools to do, is use what they call supportive discipline, which really involves the kids, keeping them in school, helping educate them. It doesn't mean that there are no consequences, but it's really helping them by surrounding them with a community and also giving them support. Because if they're caught in school vaping, it could be that they have an addiction, and sending them home from school where there may not be a parent around and no one to support them is really not the answer. So we have these sort of alternative to suspensions that focus on supporting students and providing them with, the resources that they need. So we really encourage this, a more holistic approach. And then again, resources for schools. If you're a parent or a school and you want to have kids really learn more inside the classroom, there are some really great programs for kids, and they're super easy for kids, for schools. Some of these are around restorative practices, but others are also more educational tools for kids. There are multi-day programs like the Tobacco Prevention Toolkit. You don't need any education yourself on this. It has all the talking points, posters, activities for kids. So these are ways for kids to understand, first of all, how they were targeted, and also the health harms, and just activities around it. And also we have a program where we are going into stores in communities and reporting illegal sales of nicotine. And so we urge you to get involved. If you want, we can tell you a little bit more about how to do that in your own communities. And then if you also want to do what I'm doing, which is be an educator in your community, we have a digital toolkit, and we can do a training with people who are interested, whether you're a parent or a teacher or anyone who wants to present in their community and just spread this, because really people should know the health harms. We would urge you to check it out, our educator toolkit. You can reach out to us. And then finally, I just want to share, so normally we mostly talk to adults, but many parents were saying, look, my kids don't care about the health harms. I need something else that will resonate with them, that will keep them from vaping. And so knowing how much kids care about the environment, we created a campaign and an educational program called Vapes Are Trash, because effectively vapes are not disposable. Even disposable vapes, they have toxic chemicals, they have lithium ion batteries, plastics. These are not disposable products. So we created this campaign to highlight the human and environmental impact of e-cigarettes and how the tobacco industry is sort of greenwashing it all. And it really gets kids passionate. I mean, they love the environment, and it gets them sort of to become advocates again, as opposed to users. So we started as an ad campaign, but now it's really become a broader campaign that some kids are using in the classrooms, or teachers. Some kids are doing sort of Earth Day events and things like that, that educate people about the health hazards of the environmental and health hazards of vaping. And hopefully kids are making the leap to say, look, if these products aren't safe for our dogs and our whales and so forth, maybe they're not good for me either. So we are sort of making that link between health harms and environmental harms. So that is really the end of the formal program. I would love for you guys, I'm going to check out the Q&A here, but I would love for you to, everyone knows how to use these QR codes, but to open the QR code with your camera and just answer a couple of simple questions. We would love you to get involved. We also want to know how we're doing, and if there's content that we're missing that you'd like to hear more about, we'd love to hear from you. And then finally, and very importantly, we are a nonprofit, and so our crucial work is only made possible through generous donations. So if you'd like to donate, you can also do that on our website or through the QR code. And so that is the end of the formal presentation. I'm going to check the Q&A here, see if there's anything. Okay, so what do you recommend? So this is someone who wants to know what they should do if their daughter's father vapes, that it's hard to tell her not to vape when her father vapes. And so this goes back to, the question of that it does raise the risk, right? It feels like it normalizes it, that if dad's doing it, it must be okay. It's really, I think it's a great opportunity to have a conversation about how addictive nicotine really is. It's possible her father started young, got addicted, and now it's really hard to quit. And so, it could be actually a cautionary tale to just talk about how hard it is even as an adult to get off of nicotine. So I don't know if that's a helpful answer, but maybe have a conversation with the father to say, look, maybe you cannot do this in front of our daughter, because it is sort of normalizing the behavior for her. Or it can be also a time to have a conversation to say, for him to say, look, I'm really addicted to nicotine, and I am urging you not to use it because it's really hard to quit. Another question, I'm hoping my child's high school will start to address the vaping issue. They have, we're hearing a lot about schools having a really tough problem. How can I best convince the high school administration to discuss this topic more openly, as in a vaping 101 for parent night? So that's a great question. That is exactly what we're doing here tonight. We, in fact, have done this presentation for parents in high schools across the country. Unfortunately, the demand is so high that now we're starting to offer this sort of free quarterly one. We are happy to go into schools and do this. Unfortunately, now we have to charge. For the most part, there are ones we will do for free, and in certain schools where they don't have the budget. But generally, that is why we're offering nights like this. But if you would like, maybe there's someone in your own school who would like to be trained on this content. We can share the slides, we can train them. There's a toolkit that shows them everything, all the talking points, and you can do a night like this in your own school, and we would urge it. We can't be everywhere. Experts, other experts cannot be everywhere. So we urge you to actually do this in your own communities. This is exactly what we're trying to do, is spread the word. So thank you for that question. Any other questions that have come in? Let's see. I'm a training educator, Division of Public Health. Would like to recommend a cessation program for youth. So I would say that you might start with your own community to see what cessation programs are working there. There might be something that is very hands-on in that community. And there are, again, national resources. If you go on our website, you can see some of the national resources for quitting. But if a child, they may need talk therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy, as well as nicotine replacement therapy, like a patch, or other therapies that may be helpful to a youth. So I would say to start in your own community as the most sort of direct help, either through the pediatrician or your own doctors, but many pediatricians are very eager to help. Is there anything else? Alyssa and Austin, have I hit on everything. Um, how can parents be involved as a first step? This program starts in elementary and fifth grade. CARE is a great resource. Why not start early? I totally agree with you. I mean, again, we are seeing more and more from youth, we're hearing more and more from teachers of elementary school kids that they're bringing it on the school bus at like second and third grade. They're probably finding it in older siblings' things, or from adults in their lives, or frankly on the street. I mean, I see vapes, garbage on the street all the time. So I agree. I think we should start early and talk about it, just like we would any other, any other issue like cigarettes. I started when my kids were, 2 or 3, walking down the street. I would see cigarettes and have a conversation. And I think we should do the same with our young kids now. Are there PAVE groups on a state level to give presentations? Yes, if you want to reach out to us, we're happy to share, and I'll share with you. These are our handles, so you can always get to us. If you want to reach us, contact us at info@parentsagainst.vaping.org or education@parentsagainst.vaping.org. And we are happy to talk with you. We have worked with many or several departments of health to actually train public health people in their state so that then they can go out and do these presentations for people in their own communities. So we're really excited that people are using our content and spreading the word. This is really what it's about. Maybe I'll take one more. What time is it? Oh, we're good. I'm a prevention intervention specialist, and I'm starting to see kids having fentanyl in their vapes. Oh, I know. Have you been seeing anything like this? We are not seeing it, we're hearing about it. Again, this is a problem with 90% of vapes are coming in from China. Many thousands of those vapes are not authorized for use in the US. And so they are not regulated. And the problem is kids don't know what's in a vape. And we have heard of, not so much with the nicotine vapes yet, but we've heard it more with some THC vapes. But I fear that we might be seeing more and more of it. And so it scares me to death as a parent myself. Does it help to just throw away the stuff every time you see it? That was my reaction. But unfortunately, while my daughter started vaping at 17, and I just kept throwing things away, and also I kept sharing, because the more I learned, the more alarmed I became as a parent about the health harms. And so I would share information with them or with her. And what I realized is that because I did listen to this addiction psychiatrist, Jonathan Avery, who really kind of helped me understand, as did others that we've had really incredible speakers talk about addiction, understand that only when a child is ready can you really be a support to them. So all we could do as parents was say, look, we're here for you. We are ready to help you in any way we can when you are ready to quit. We will be there for you. And fortunately, when she left college, she graduated and had a totally change of scenery. She said, I'm ready now, because I wasn't tempted. She wasn't tempted by all the parties and the usual routine of where she would normally vape. And so it was really a great clean start for her. And that was really what helped her. But unfortunately, it can only be when your child is ready. So all you can do is offer love and support, and just let them know that you are there for them, that you fear for them, that you feel scared, that, that they may be harming their body, but that that you're there for them when they're ready. What was the best information that you told your daughter? Oof. I don't know. I feel like everything I told her, she would roll her eyes. But I would just share articles with her, in any new health findings, or, but fear tactics don't work with kids, as we know, right? I mean, I think vaping itself is scary enough, but I think also the natural consequences for her. She could tell that when she wasn't vaping, she was breathing better, she was sleeping better, and she was less moody. And so I feel like that when kids have some positive reinforcement, that it encourages them. So even when they fall back, they remember what it might have felt like when they weren't weren't vaping and weren't addicted. I think that's all we have time for tonight. I'm so grateful that you all could join here. And again, if you have any follow-up questions, um, sorry, I see one more about Zyn, and I really want to answer this because, yes, they are becoming more popular. We're hearing that more and more that kids are using them. Some kids who don't vape are using them. And many kids who vape are using them. Again, I think some use them when they know that they can't vape, but they need to take the edge off because they can't take a hit of their vape. So they will use Zyn. It is not healthy, and again, any nicotine for developing brain and body is not good. And we are hearing about it more and more. So anyway, if you want to reach out, please feel free. Education at or information at or info at parentsagainst.vaping.org. We are really thankful you've joined us. This is being recorded, and you will receive a recording of it with a follow-up email. And so I want to thank you, and thanks Austin and Alyssa for being here tonight to help us out. And have a great night, everybody.